Grief has a strange way of warping time. Hours feel like days, days feel like minutes, and somehow life keeps moving even when you stand perfectly still. That was me, 69 years old, sitting alone in the quiet of my house in Northbridge, staring at the empty chair across from mine. The chair my wife, Lydia, once filled with soft humming and half-finished crossword puzzles. For 30 years, every Thursday without fail, she would leave the house at precisely 10 in the morning and walk to the same small brick bank downtown. She never explained it. I never asked. That was our rhythm. Trust, routine, and the kind of silence that comes from decades spent building a life together. She passed away 3 months ago. And for reasons I couldn't explain at the time, the Thursday after her funeral hit me harder than the day she was lowered into the ground. Before I go any further, before I tell you what I discovered, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you are watching from. It helps more than you know. That Thursday morning I stood by the window at 9:58 watching our street through the same pale curtains she used to straighten every morning. The breeze pushed small spirals of dust across the hardwood floor. The kettle whistled faintly behind me, but I didn't move. All I could think about was how my wife used to grab her coat at exactly this time, smile faintly at me and say, "It won't take long." And every Thursday she was right. But now she was gone, and the small silver watch she always wore sat motionless on the table, a reminder of how little I truly understood about her private world. People assume that after 30 years of marriage you know everything. You know their habits, their weaknesses, the way they breathe when they sleep. But what I learned after Lydia's death proved something else entirely. You can share a life with someone and still only glimpse the edges of who they really are. Neighbors came and went with casseroles and sympathy cards. My daughter Marley called often, telling me I needed to get out of the house, stay busy, try hobbies. But how do you stay busy when every corner of your home reminds you of someone you lost? It was during one of those restless Thursdays that a thin, weathered envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address. My name written in handwriting I didn't recognize. Neat, deliberate strokes. Inside was a single note. If you want answers, ask about the Thursday account. No explanation. No signature. Just those 6 words. My heartbeat kicked painfully in my chest. I read the note again and again. Something icy crawled through my spine. The Thursday account. A part of me wanted to ignore it. Grief plays tricks on the mind. People send strange things to widowers, but another part, the part that had always trusted Lydia's gentle routines, knew there was more. I couldn't sit anymore. I grabbed her old coat from the hook, still faintly carrying the scent of lavender, and left the house. The walk to the Northbridge Savings Bank felt longer than it ever had. The building was the same as always. Old-fashioned red brick, a brass plaque by the door, and a row of windows overlooking Main Street. Inside, everything smelled faintly of paper and lemon polish. A woman at the counter greeted me with a professional smile. "Can I help you?" I'm here about my wife," I said quietly. "She came here every Thursday for 3 decades. Something in her expression shifted. Not shock, not confusion, but recognition. She motioned toward a small office near the back. "Please wait there." Moments later, a man in a dark suit stepped inside. He closed the door gently behind him like someone bracing for a fragile conversation. He introduced himself politely, but his voice carried an undercurrent of caution. "I know who you are," he said, "and I know why your wife came here every Thursday." I felt my breath catch. "But I need you to understand something before we go any further." He slid a thin file across the desk toward me. My name typed on the tab. "Your wife kept a secret for 30 years, he said softly, "and she didn't want you to find out until she was gone." My hands trembled as I reached for the folder. Because the moment I opened it, I realized her Thursday visits weren't about money. They were about a decision she made decades ago, a decision that changed everything I thought I knew about her. The folder in front of me felt heavier than paper should ever feel. My fingers hovered over it for a long moment, afraid that whatever waited inside would change something fundamental about the woman I loved. When you spend 30 years with someone, you start believing there are no surprises left. But as I sat in that cramped bank office, the blinds casting thin shadows across the desk, I realized how wrong I had been. I finally opened it. Inside were a handful of documents Deposit slips, handwritten notes, a small certificate, and an old photograph that seemed wildly out of place. The man in the photo wasn't me. He was younger than I am now, maybe mid-30s, standing in front of a weathered food pantry in a part of town I didn't recognize. Lydia had signed the back in delicate cursive. Summer donation. I looked up sharply at the banker. What exactly am I looking at? He folded his hands carefully as if preparing to deliver difficult news. Your wife maintained a separate Thursday account for 30 years. She made modest deposits every week without fail. Not for herself, but for someone else. A strange tightness gripped my chest. Someone else? Yes, he said gently. But before I can explain further, you need context. Your wife was meticulous. She planned her finances with extraordinary discipline, and she left instructions. He reached into another drawer, pulled out a sealed envelope, and slid it across the desk. My name was written on the front, David. Her handwriting, her calm, looping curves. I hadn't seen it in months, and for a moment my throat closed, making it difficult to breathe. I brushed my thumb over the paper, imagining her sitting at our kitchen table, writing this letter while I slept upstairs. The banker continued quietly. She asked that we give this to you only after her passing and only if you came asking about the Thursday account. She believed you might need time before facing the truth. I swallowed hard. My palms were damp. Why would she hide anything from me? We trusted each other. His eyes softened. Sometimes people hide things not out of deceit, but out of protection. Protection. The word sank into me like a stone in deep water. I opened the envelope. Lydia's scent, lavender and citrus, rose faintly from the paper, making my eyes sting. My love, the letter began. There is no way to explain this without hurting you, but please know everything I did was out of care, not betrayal. Never that. My heart pounded as I kept reading. She wrote about a decision she made long before we met, a promise she made to someone she once knew, a son of a friend who had grown up in poverty, who struggled for years to keep himself steady. She wrote how she believed small acts of support could steer a life in a different direction. And every Thursday she deposited a small amount into an account dedicated entirely to that purpose. Not charity, not an affair. Something else, something more complicated. She wrote, "You would have tried to take over, fix everything, solve things your way. I love that about you. But this wasn't a problem to fix, just a life to support quietly." I felt heat rise behind my eyes. The room seemed to tilt slightly. "And the 30 years?" I asked the banker, my voice shaking. "She kept this up for 30 years?" He nodded. "Every week. She never missed a single Thursday, even when she was ill. The photo, the food pantry, the unfamiliar name on the documents. Someone had been living on Lydia's silent generosity. Someone she apparently considered part of her responsibility. Someone she never thought to tell me about." I leaned back, pressing a hand against my forehead. I wasn't sure whether to feel betrayed or humbled. "Where is he now?" I asked quietly. The banker hesitated. "That's the part she feared would overwhelm you." He opened another file, one Lydia had left specifically for the end of this conversation. "She wanted you to meet him." I stared at the documents. An address scribbled neatly, a phone number, and a short message in her handwriting. "Please find him. He needs you now more than ever." My pulse quickened. My breath turned shallow, because below the address was something I never expected to see. A certificate naming me as someone's legal guardian. And in that moment, with Lydia gone and my world cracking open, I realized her Thursday secret wasn't about the past. It was about the future she left in my hands. The certificate naming me as a legal guardian felt unreal in my hands. I kept staring at it, hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something that made more sense. But they didn't. They stayed firm, printed in thick ink that refused to soften. My wife, Lydia, had entrusted me with a responsibility I knew nothing about, and for 30 years she had carried this alone. The banker sat softly on the edge of his chair, watching me with the kind of patience people use around someone who's one breath away from breaking. "I need to know who he is," I finally said. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. He opened the folder again, sliding a photograph toward me. The same man I saw earlier, standing in front of a community food pantry, his expression caught between exhaustion and defiance. The name below the picture read, Evan Calder. He depended on your wife, the banker said gently. She never missed a Thursday, not once. I exhaled slowly, the air leaving my body with a heaviness I couldn't hide. Why didn't she ever tell me? He didn't hesitate. She believed it would weigh on you, and she feared you might try to take everything on yourself. She wanted to protect both of you. The answer stung, not because it painted me in a poor light, but because it was true. I had always been the fixer, the one who tried to solve every problem. But this wasn't a problem, it was a person. Someone Lydia had quietly supported for most of our marriage. I opened her letter again, hoping her words would steady me. Please trust that I never meant to deceive you. I only wanted to give someone a chance they would never have found alone. If you're reading this, it means I can no longer continue. And he needs help, David. Real help. I read those sentences again and again until the letters blurred together. Where is he now? I asked. The banker folded his hands. Living in Elderwood Junction, it has been a difficult year for him. He lost his job in the winter. Your wife tried to encourage him to seek assistance elsewhere, but he refused. He only trusted her. And now she's gone, I whispered. He nodded. Yes. And he does not yet know. My heart tightened. The idea of telling a stranger that the one person who believed in him, steadily, quietly, without judgment, was no longer alive. It felt impossibly cruel. But Lydia had left this for me, trusting I could do what she could not. Do I call him? I asked. Write him? He responds poorly to phone calls. From unknown numbers, the banker said. Your wife always visited him at the pantry or in his neighborhood. She felt those conversations mattered most. So I have to go there myself, he nodded once. I slipped the letter back into the envelope, folding it with care as though it might fall apart if handled too roughly. I stood and the banker rose with me. If you need details, records, anything at all, we're here, he said. Your wife organized this thoughtfully. She hoped you would continue the work she started. I left the bank with the late afternoon sun brushing against my face. The air smelled faintly of rain and pavement. I didn't go home immediately. Instead, I walked along the waterfront until the sky turned pale lavender. I needed time to understand what Lydia had done, why she had kept this hidden, and what it meant for me now. When I finally returned home, the house felt different, quieter, heavier. I placed her letter on the dining table, the envelope casting a small shadow across the wood. I sat there until evening settled in, thinking about Lydia's steady routines, her gentle eyes, the way she always paused before leaving on Thursdays, as if deciding whether to explain something she couldn't bring herself to say. At 8 in the evening, I rose, grabbed my coat, and made a decision that felt both impossible and inevitable. Tomorrow I would go to Elderwood Junction and meet the man my wife had been protecting for 30 years. But before dawn arrived, something happened that unraveled everything I thought I knew about Lydia's secret. Because just after sunrise, someone knocked on my door, and they were asking about Evan Calder, and the fear in their voice made me realize Lydia hadn't been protecting Evan from hardship. She had been protecting him from danger. The knocking started just after sunrise. Sharp, urgent, the kind of knock someone uses when they're carrying trouble they don't want to keep. I pulled on my robe and opened the door cautiously, expecting a neighbor or a delivery. Instead, a stranger stood on my porch, shifting nervously from foot to foot. He was in his late 20s, thin, pale, and wearing a jacket that looked one size too large. His eyes darted around as though checking whether someone had followed him. "Are you David Dawson?" he asked. Even the way he said my name carried tension. "Yes," I answered slowly. "Can I help you?" He swallowed hard. I was told you might know where to find Evan." My pulse quickened. "Who told you that?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Your wife." The air seemed to leave my lungs. Lydia. Even now she was still guiding strangers toward me, still managing the pieces of a puzzle I hadn't solved. "What's your name?" I asked. "Caleb," he said. "I worked with Evan for a while. I've been trying to reach him. He's in trouble." I stepped aside and motioned him in. "Come in. Tell me everything." He entered hesitantly, glancing around the living room as if assessing whether he was safe. His shoes left damp marks on the floor, morning dew or sweat, I couldn't tell. He didn't sit until I gestured to the chair across from mine. "What kind of trouble?" I asked. Caleb rubbed his hands together, his voice dropping to a whisper. There's a man named Rourke. He runs, well, he pretends it's a loan service, but it's not. It's a trap. Evan got stuck in it years ago. He never told anyone except your wife. I stiffened. Why her? She saw him one day outside the pantry. He was shaking, crying, couldn't even pay for groceries. She sat down with him, talked to him like he mattered, and from that moment, he trusted her. She helped him get out of the worst of it. My chest tightened. Lydia had always been gentle with strangers, but I never imagined she was carrying someone else's burdens this deep. So what happened now? I asked. Caleb leaned forward. Evan slipped again, lost his job, fell behind. And Rourke doesn't let people fall behind. I didn't like the sound of that. When did you last see Evan? A few weeks ago, Caleb said. He looked scared. And when I went by his place yesterday, his door was wide open. Everything inside was trashed. He was gone. A cold ripple ran down my spine. Were the police called? Caleb shook his head quickly. No, he'd never want that, and Rourke has a way of making people stay quiet. Fear crept into his expression. Not fear for Evan, but fear of being heard saying his name. I sat back, trying to process everything. So why come to me? I asked. Caleb hesitated. Because your wife always said, if anything ever happened, to come here, that you were the one person who wouldn't walk away. The words struck me hard. Lydia had believed in me enough to trust I would step into her silent role. She carried this secret for 30 years, protecting someone I didn't even know existed, but she wanted me to finish what she started. I stood and walked to the window, staring out at the quiet street. Birds were scattered across the lawn, pecking at seeds Lydia used to leave in small cups. This house, this life felt suddenly different, like a stage set for a story I hadn't realized I was part of. I turned back to Caleb. Do you know where Rourke operates? His eyes widened with fear. You can't go there, it's dangerous. I didn't ask if it was safe, I said gently. I asked if you know where. He hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Elderwood Junction. An old garage behind the freight tracks. People go in and out, mostly at night. Elderwood Junction again. The same place Lydia had directed me to. The same place Evan lived. The same place that seemed to pull every thread of this story together. I grabbed my coat. Caleb's voice cracked. You're going now? Yes, I said. If Lydia believed I could help him, then I'm not waiting another day. He exhaled shakily. You don't understand. If Rourke thinks you're interfering... I met his eyes. I'm not here to interfere. I'm here to find the truth. Caleb looked down, defeated. Then I'm coming with you. No, I said firmly. You've already risked enough. But he shook his head. Evan saved me once. I'm not abandoning him. His resolve surprised me, but I didn't argue. If we were walking into danger, better to have someone who knew the terrain. We stepped outside into the crisp morning air, the sun just beginning to rise. I locked the door behind me, because something told me I wouldn't be home for a while. And when we reached Elderwood Junction, it didn't take long to realize Lydia's secret wasn't just about helping a man survive. It was about keeping him alive. Elderwood Junction was the kind of place most people in Northbridge preferred not to acknowledge. An aging industrial stretch hidden behind rail lines and half-abandoned warehouses. When Caleb and I approached the area, the air felt heavier, as if the buildings themselves were holding their breath. Rusted freight cars sat motionless on the tracks, tagged with faded graffiti. A chain-link fence rattled in the wind, clinging to its last threads of purpose. This is it, Caleb murmured, pointing to a squat brick structure with a metal garage door half sunk into the ground. Rourke's place. It didn't look like a business, more like a forgotten repair shop from another decade. A lone exterior light flickered above the entrance, buzzing loudly even in daylight. The whole building had the unsettling stillness of a place where people came to settle debts they were never meant to survive. Are you sure Evan's here? I asked quietly. No, Caleb admitted. But this is the last place anyone saw him. I studied the building, searching for movement. A shadow shifted behind one of the dirty windows, small, quick, and then gone. My stomach tightened. What's your plan? Caleb whispered. I don't know yet, I said honestly, but I'm not leaving without answers. We approached the side door. It was cracked open as if someone left in a hurry. Caleb hesitated but pushed it lightly. It creaked, then swung inward. The smell inside hit us immediately. Engine oil. stale air, and something metallic that made my skin crawl. The interior was dim, lit by a single hanging bulb swaying gently as if disturbed moments earlier. Workbenches were scattered with tools and piles of paperwork. A distorted radio hummed somewhere deeper inside the building. "This feels wrong," Caleb whispered. He was right. Every instinct inside me told me to turn around. But Lydia hadn't walked away for 30 years, even when fear must have pressed against her the same way it pressed against me now. If she could show up here Thursday after Thursday, then I could face whatever waited in the shadows. A clatter echoed from the back room. Caleb flinched. "Someone's here." I stepped forward slowly. "Evan?" I called out. My voice seemed to swallow itself in the stale air. No response. We moved deeper into the garage, past shelves stacked with boxes and cans. My pulse thudded in my ears. Then another sound. Footsteps, not hurried, not frightened. Deliberate. A tall man stepped out from behind a stack of crates, wiping, his hands on a rag as if he'd been expecting us. He had the kind of calm that didn't belong in a place this tense. "You must be Dawson," he said. His voice was low, smooth, almost polite. That only made it more threatening. Caleb stiffened beside me. "Rourke." The man smiled faintly, confirming his identity without a word. "I've been hearing your name." Rourke continued studying me with unsettling interest. "Your wife was a remarkable woman, dedicated, predictable. I can't say I was pleased when her visits stopped." Ice filled my chest. "You knew Lydia?" "Oh, very well," he said casually. "She made our arrangements smoother. Reliable payments help keep things civil." Caleb clenched his fists. "Evan never should have been dragged into this." Rourke ignored him. Instead, he stepped closer to me. "Your wife understood how this works," he murmured. "Debts don't disappear. People don't just walk away." "I'm not here to discuss debts," I said. "I'm here to find Evan." His expression shifted, amusement mixed with annoyance. "Evan is where he needs to be," Rourke replied, "and where he'll stay until things are settled." That tightened something deep inside me. "What does that mean? Is he hurt?" Rourke tilted his head. "He's alive. For now. But that depends on how cooperative you choose to be." The quiet threat in his voice was unmistakable. Caleb stepped in front of me. "You can't do this. His wife—" Rourke cut him off. "His wife is not here anymore. Which is precisely why the situation has become complicated." My breath caught. "What do you want from me?" I asked. Rourke's smile widened, slow and deliberate. "Nothing you can't provide. Your wife left a gap that needs filling, and you're going to fill it." He looked past me at the open door, then back into my eyes. "Unless you'd prefer I let Evan's situation worsen." The threat was no longer implied. It was clear, sharp, direct. I had walked into Lydia's secret world thinking I'd uncover a simple truth, something bittersweet, maybe painful, but understandable. Instead, I had stepped into the center of a storm she had been shielding alone for 3 decades. And now, the storm had turned its attention to me, because when I finally learned where Evan was being kept, and what Lydia had been hiding from me all these years, the truth shattered everything I thought I knew about sacrifice and about love. Rourke's threat hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. For a long moment, none of us moved. The single hanging bulb above us swayed slightly, casting uneven shadows across the concrete floor. I felt every beat of my heart, each one louder than the last. "You want me to continue Lydia's payments," I said slowly. "That's what this is about." Rourke folded his arms, expression unreadable. "Your wife understood value, stability. She knew how to keep things from unraveling." "And Evan?" I asked. "Where is he?" A faint flicker of annoyance crossed his face. "Safe, for now. But safety is expensive, Dawson. Your wife paid for it. You can too." Caleb's voice cracked. "This isn't stability, it's extortion." Rourke turned his gaze sharply toward him, and Caleb immediately stepped back. Then Rourke looked at me again. "You came here for answers," he said calmly. "Here they are. Evan owes more than he can repay. Your wife helped him avoid consequences. Continue that help and nothing changes." I clenched my jaw. "And if I don't?" Rourke's silence was more threatening than any words. But in that silence, something inside me settled. Lydia had faced this man every week for 30 years. Not out of fear, but out of determination. She wasn't protecting herself. She was protecting someone who had no one else. I straightened my shoulders. Take me to him. Rourke blinked once, surprised by the firmness in my tone. You're not in a position to negotiate. I'm not negotiating, I said. If you want anything from me, I need to see him first. He studied me for a long moment, weighing something in his mind. Then with a slow exhale, he nodded. Fine. He walked toward the back of the building. Caleb shot me a horrified look, but I motioned for him to follow. We passed through a narrow hallway lined with broken machinery and stacks of crates until Rourke stopped at a heavy metal door secured by an oversized padlock. He unlocked it. The room inside was dim but warmer than the rest of the warehouse. A folding cot sat against the wall, blankets neatly arranged. And sitting on the edge of that cot, head bowed, hands clasped tightly, was Evan. He looked up as the door opened. His eyes widened. Not with fear, but recognition. You're Lydia's husband, he whispered. His voice was hoarse, worn down. Yes, I said quietly. My name is David. He stood slowly, shoulders trembling. Is she? I kept waiting for her. She never missed a Thursday. The question broke. Something inside me. I stepped closer. She's gone, I said softly. She passed a few months ago. Evan sank back onto the cot, covering his face with both hands. A soft, strangled sound escaped him, grief mixed with disbelief. She saved my life, he whispered. Every week. She never made me feel ashamed. I sat beside him. She cared about you more than you know. And she left something behind for you. Rourke shifted impatiently in the doorway. Touching. But time is... For once, I cut in, you can wait. For the first time, he didn't argue. I handed Evan the letter Lydia had addressed to me but intended for both of us. He unfolded it slowly, tears slipping down his cheeks as he read her words. Her final words explaining why she had stepped into his life, why she had supported him quietly, why she believed he deserved a future free of the shadows that had followed him for so long. When he finished, he held the letter against his chest like it was a lifeline. I don't want her sacrifice to end here, I said gently, and I won't let you face this alone. Evan looked at me with exhausted hope. But how? He'll never let me go. I turned toward Rourke. This ends today. Rourke laughed under his breath. You think you can walk in here and dictate terms? No, I said. But I can call the police. I can bring every piece of documentation Lydia kept, every detail she recorded, every receipt, every signature, 30 years of evidence. For the first time, Rourke's confidence faltered. You wouldn't, he said. I would, I replied, and I will. Silence. Then Rourke exhaled sharply, jaw tightening. Fine. He's your problem now, but if he comes crawling back, he won't, I said. Rourke stepped aside. I helped Evan stand. Caleb supported him on the other side. We walked out of the warehouse together, leaving the darkness behind us. Outside, the morning sun was climbing over Elderwood Junction, turning the cracked pavement gold. Evan lifted a trembling hand to block the light, and for a moment, he looked free. Truly free for the first time in years. Where do we go now? He asked. Home, I said. We start over. Because Lydia hadn't left me a burden. She had left me a purpose. A chance to finish what she began, not out of obligation, but out of love for the woman who gave all she had to protect someone who needed her. And maybe, in saving Evan, I could save a part of myself too. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.